am here to share my daughter's story. She passed away from fentanyl poisoning. She was actually murdered by fentanyl poisoning.
So what was Jules like? What was she like growing up?
So just give me a...
Take your time.
It's never easy having to speak about your child in past tense. So this question gets me every time because she should be here. So just bear with me while I get this out, and then I would love to share what my baby, what she was like. Jules was absolutely amazing. She was born feisty, but as soon as she met her big brother, we got the first smile out of her. It was an instant connection. She was such a performer. She was performing since preschool and above. Like, she was a shy child by nature, but performing, you would never be able to tell because she just commanded the stage, and she was a fast learner. It was just so fun to watch. She did her school talent shows in elementary school. She actually did the Eagles Hotel California, and she didn't have the time to learn it all. So I told her, just wing it, baby, just wing it. And she winged it, and she did amazing. Such a performer. She loved it, but she also didn't have to be the center of attention. She respected others being in their light and their happiness, and others having their time to shine, and which made her shine even more because she was just so good-hearted and pure in nature. A lot of people gravitated towards her because she was so open-minded and had just such a genuine heart and soft nature, and she was funny. She was somewhat shy, except around those she really got to know, and she had a killer sense of humor. She was our biggest cheerleader. And literally, she was a cheerleader too. She loved the holidays, which makes the holidays, bittersweet because they're just not the same without her. Jules was a sweet soul. She was very festive. At first, Jules was into it, very festive, did all of the activities in school. But as she got older, especially, I think it was 6th or 7th grade, which was middle school, the bullying started with people that were supposed to be her friends. So unfortunately, even the mean ones gravitated towards my daughter, which I think is what kind of catapulted her depression, in addition to her father's and my divorce. Even though he wasn't really attentive in any way, emotionally or mentally. So I know that hurt her. extremely. And then COVID happened. And she had just made the high school cheer team, but unfortunately lockdown occurred shortly after and shut the country down. They had to resort to doing practice and cheer online, which she was not about, so she ended up dropping out of cheer. But the bullying, it really, really broke her, because she knew she didn't deserve it, and she was such a good friend. And I just read my daughter's autopsy report for the first time about 2 days ago. I wasn't ready to do it yet, but I picked it up from the coroner's office, and I read it because I needed to know my daughter's story fully. I can't advocate for others with a genuine heart if I'm not going to know my own child's horrific details. So I read the autopsy report, and there were notes of scars from self-harm, which I know from Jules's own words came from a friend that turned into a bully. Grabbed my daughter, I don't know if it was her leg, her arm, and cut her and said, "This is how you do it." And so that's why bullying, to me, it strikes a nerve, because it's very detrimental, and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be handled. And we all know it usually starts at home. And so it's important what we teach our kids, and that we actually do teach our kids how to be decent and kind individuals. My son found her. He found her in her bed and thought she was sleeping. They were actually supposed to hang out that day. And like a teenager, he thought Jules was just sleeping. My son is a little over 2 years older than Jules. So they were supposed to hang out, from what I know. So I'm like, okay, I didn't hear from Jules. I was at my now ex-boyfriend's house, and I was coming home the next morning. But then I got a call early that morning. The detective, I forget what his name was, of course, but he's like, hey, he called me on my son's phone. So I was completely shocked. I was thinking, okay, my son's having a hard time sleeping. I answered it, and it was a different man's voice. He's like, "Is this Regina Chavez?" And I said, "Yes." And he's like, "This is Detective so-and-so. Where are you at? I need you to come home." I'm like, I'm about 45 minutes away. I'll be there. I'm like, "Are my kids okay?" And he's like, he hesitated for a moment, but then he told me, yes, just get home and drive safely. So I, of course, drove home from Rio Oso to Roseville. And when I arrived, there were probably 4 or 5 marked police SUVs with their lights on. The sirens weren't on, but the lights were on. And I thought maybe my kids had a house party, even though that's never happened before. But she was 15, he was 18. They were going to hang out with friends. So I was in the mindset of, okay, we're going to deal with the repercussions, and they're going to face the music and learn from this. And so then when I walked up the stairs to our apartment, the detective who spoke with me on the phone introduced himself again and said, "I'm the one that called you." And he wouldn't let me go inside. He just kept me outside. And he's talking to me, and he's like, "Isaac's fine. Isaac's, doing great. I don't know if I said how's my baby or how's Jules." And then he identified himself. "I'm a detective, but I'm also a chaplain. And there's been an accident, and Jules didn't make it. We think she overdosed." And I remember I pulled my arm away from him because I was thinking, like, what a sick joke. Like, what a sick joke. And when he told me that, I looked at my son and I said, this isn't true. And he said, yes, Mom, it's true. And then I learned that Isaac was the one that had discovered his baby sister. And I wanted to see my daughter. I wanted to, like, I needed to be there for it all, for the bad, for the good. That's my baby. That's my burden to carry, that pain, that I needed to know everything, but they wouldn't let me. My son said, no, Mom. And I think it was really sweet of him to protect me like that. And so they didn't let me see my daughter. And then the coroner's van pulled up shortly after. I'm like, this can't be my reality. This is not my child's reality. And I never questioned God, like what had happened to my kids. I never, ever questioned him. Because I knew I never wanted to challenge him. I just thought, okay, I put my everything into my children. I'm going to protect them. I'm both mom and dad. Like, I got this. And I failed. I couldn't protect my daughter. I spoke to her about trusting people. I spoke to her and my son about our consequences, or about our actions having consequences, both good and bad, and to be careful who we trust. And this still happened. According to the evidence, my daughter was gone shortly 2 hours after me last seeing her and giving her a huge hug and telling her that her hair was so beautiful, because I hugged her, but then I pulled her in again and I hugged her tightly. She was the best hugger. Just such a lover. And she said, thank you, Mama. She just had this gorgeous, beautiful mane of hair. And I hugged her. I felt it on my face and my side. And she went to her room. That was the last time that I got to hug my baby and talk to her.
So you remember that extra vividly?
Absolutely. I was mostly a single mom for their whole life, so that was my purpose. My kids. Protecting them. And I couldn't protect my baby from this. Then Detective Patrick Craven came out. He's the detective that worked our case. He's our unicorn detective. He also worked Zach Didier's case in Rockland. And from there, we were told that we might have a murder investigation on our hands, and that if they did, it would be a hard challenge, because nobody has ever been convicted in California for fentanyl poisoning. But he said he was up for the challenge. And then when it turned out that we did have a murder on our hands, once the DA, who is our DA unicorn, Daniel Wesp, once they went over the evidence together to make sure we could pursue murder charges, They promised, they said, we know it's going to be a challenge. This has never been done before, but we're going to do everything. And they did. They obtained the first murder conviction in California history for fentanyl poisoning. That's my daughter's name, helping every case going forward. And since then, they've helped, they've created the Placer Special Investigations Unit to investigate cases like this. I can 100% say that I could not have had a better team working on my daughter's case. Nothing will bring my daughter back. Unfortunately, nothing will bring her back. However, the effort that Placer County, their DA office, has put into investigating my daughter's case and treating her like an individual, treating her like their own child, and seeking justice, I am forever indebted and appreciative to them. And I can say Placer County we are really leading the way. We just, in our sadness and in our heartbreak, myself and other parents that unfortunately have experienced the same tragedy are joining together to help others know that, one, this is nearly unbearable to survive alone. This is nearly unbearable. Your health takes a decline. Every mental and emotional state takes a hard hit, and you're torn between two realities, heaven and earth. I want to be with my baby in heaven, and I want to be here with my son on earth. And so having the support and wanting to bring awareness about this is so essential. It's so essential, because if this could happen to my child, it could happen to anybody. Fentanyl does not discriminate. So there is so much more, I have a lot to do in order to help the best I can my daughter and others so that they're not experiencing this. I am starting school again. I plan to go to law school. The best way to help is to educate myself and there's a lot of change that needs to be made with California law. There's so much change. And now I am unfortunately given the power of being fearless. I don't fear failing because I've already lost the greatest thing to me. So I'm not saying it's going to be an easy journey, and I have the loss of my daughter in addition to that. However, she's worth it. My children are worth it, and we cannot stand by and just keep allowing fentanyl to infiltrate our country. We cannot keep allowing this to happen to others. And so I am definitely on a mission. I know I'm not the only mama. I can't stop raving about Placer County. I'm very fortunate to live in Placer County. There's so many, unfortunately, parents that have gone through losses, whether it's domestic violence, teenage domestic violence, deaths from drinking and driving, or fentanyl poisonings, sex trafficking. We formed a group, the Empower and Resilience Project, that we launched under a new foundation that we just launched out of the DA's office, which is the Placer Justice Foundation. Our main goal is to make sure that the human heart is protected and that we're all having each other's backs again like it should be. And so we are on a mission to make sure that you're not alone in this grief, because it's almost unbearable to survive alone. We need to find resources. That has to do with mental health. That has to do with so many different facets. The government having our back and supporting what families truly and really need in these times, whether it's recovery from addiction. There's just so much. And the sad part, but also the beautiful part, it's usually the change is usually coming from those that are experiencing the worst, those that have lost a child, or those that fear losing a child due to this, this epidemic or lack of resources. There's just so much to this, and I appreciate you guys for what you're doing, because you guys are addressing these topics that a lot of people don't want to talk about. But it's this is our reality. This is our reality, and we need to take care of people first before political agendas or anything like that. And so, to be a part of groups that understand that, to know people that sadly you have the same deep connection of the loss of a child or brother or family member, it's like an instant bonding. It's almost like you've known each other forever. And so it's important to make sure that people aren't alone, that they know they're not alone in this journey, but you also have to find the right people. You have to surround yourself with the right people, because we're in survival mode, trying to make it day to day. I am thankful. Like, this whole journey is bittersweet, because the bitter part, of course, is I don't have my child. Like, call me biased because I'm like, it's my child, but she was just magical. So magical. She was true to her name. She was definitely a Jules. She was a gem. And so, yeah, this journey is just getting started in the name of grief and honoring my daughter. But there's so much that I carry on with me from her. And so I get to feel her when I honor her or offer support to other grieving families. And yeah, I'm proud of her.